I'm currently in El Coca, Ecuador. If you don't know where that is, it is on the Amazon. It's like called the gateway to the Amazon. It's like from the Colombian border. Basically, it was 10 hours on a bus. So I'm here because I am headed to Iquitos, and I'm headed there via boat, via 4 boats. So I'm leaving tomorrow morning, but before I leave, Ecuador is my first country that I have been to that is outside of Colombia and outside of the US in a year. Today, when I was walking around here, I kind of like started to notice different things, because when I was here in Ecuador before, I had just started traveling and I wasn't like, everything was new, everything was different. I didn't have like a way to like compare country to country. I just knew it was not like the country that I had lived in, the States, and every country was different, which yes, every country is still different 100%. But since I have been living in Colombia for a year and a half, when I travel from Colombia to the US, obviously the differences are so easy and clear to mark. Also, I have lived in Colombia and I have lived in the US, so it's easy. Going from Colombia to Ecuador, a country that I have visited in the past, but I have visited the other parts. I visited Baños and Quito, which are completely different than El Coca. So here in El Coca, it is not very touristy. Okay, it's touristy, but it's not let's just say I've only run into one other tourist here in the hotel, and she was leaving. So I didn't talk to her, so I don't know anything about her story. I haven't ran into a lot of like foreigner tourists. At 2 o'clock today, I am gonna go on a boat tour with 5 other tourists. I don't know if they're from Ecuador. I don't know if they're foreigners. I don't know. I have no idea. I just met this guy in the park yesterday, and he said, and then I ran into him again today, and he said they're doing a boat. Sure, why not? I haven't really done anything here yet, so I figured it would probably be nice to go and see some of the sights besides kind of just wandering around. Basically, for me, this town was a stopover, which I spent 2 days in. So a few of the things that I have noticed here in Ecuador that is really interesting versus this is like things that are different in Ecuador and things that are different, what they do different in Colombia, because they're both obviously in South America. They both border each other, and you would think they're so close that they're very similar, which this is like what I had thought before as well. And I don't know, when you're just like new to traveling, you can be a bit naive, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe you don't know much about it. Like before I started traveling, I had no idea. Like South America, it's all gonna be similar, right? Well, I was so wrong, because I was just naive and I didn't know. But anyways, I love noticing things that are different. I don't know if it's because I was a nurse, and like you're always looking for like the obscure thing, like what's not right, what's different, what's this, what's that. It's just how your brain works, and you're like critical think. So today I was sitting at breakfast and I just started thinking about how different, how dramatically, I mean not like dramatically, but it's vastly different Colombia and Ecuador is. So first of all, when you go to Colombia, everyone tells you it's dangerous, be safe, and it's expected because Colombia, right? Narcos, drugs, history of civil war and violence for a very long time. It's all over like Netflix. I mean, we see documentaries. But Ecuador has been very popular tourist destination for years. A lot of people would skip Colombia and come to Ecuador instead, because it's more known. They have the Galapagos. You can go to the Amazon. Also, you can go to Peru to the Amazon. Anyways, but it's kind of all in this like here. And a lot of people, I have met people too that skip Colombia because they've heard so many bad things about it, which is interesting. So when I first got here, the bus dropped me off on the side of the road, but they did not leave me. They made sure they waited until I got in a taxi before the bus pulled away. This was also like at 9:30 at night, so I was happy because I don't know the area and I'm just used to, I don't really go out late at night, and because when you're a solo traveler, you have to use your like senses and your street smarts, and if they would have left me there by myself, I would have probably been like a little terrified because I had all my things. So they waited for me, and this has nothing to do with Colombia. In Colombia, that's just not, I've never had that situation. But so I get in a cab, and the first thing I ask the cab driver is it dangerous here or something, because they waited for me, and he's like, it's very dangerous. He's like, Ecuador right now is a very dangerous country. And I guess the president, it was new last year, and then he started talking about immigration here and how things are changing and how it's just very dangerous. And he said, don't go out at night, don't wander the streets, only go out during the day. And I was like, oh great, because this isn't something that you expect. So he told me to be safe. And then also, when I got to the hostel, well, it's like a hotel, but it's like a hostel hotel. I don't know. It's the same price. Anyways, so I get here, and the guy at the front desk told me the same thing. He goes, you don't want to go out now, do you? Because to eat or anything. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. But he said it's dangerous. So, and I said, well, is it okay during the day? Because I've been wondering, I like to go out during the day, walk around. I don't like to take cabs everywhere because I like to walk. So he said, yeah, during the day is completely fine, but at night, do not go out. Just don't. It's very, very dangerous. So, okay. So I don't know if it's like just this little area that I'm in, because I know like Baños is different, and I mean Quito is dangerous. I've been to Quito. I got robbed in Quito. I don't like Quito. So I know Quito is dangerous, but Quito's a major city. This is not a major city. This is like a small city. I don't know how many people there are or whatever, but it's a smaller city. So I haven't been told how dangerous a country is in a really long time. Even living in Colombia, I haven't been told that. So I did get told that in Ipiales, because Ipiales is a border town, and border towns do tend to be a bit more dangerous, so that's expected there. And I guess this kind of is a border town because you can get on the river and go to Peru, but it's not really. I mean, it's not really a border town. So yeah, so that was interesting that I got warned on how dangerous it is here, because that's one of the first times that normally it is. Yeah, normally it's going to Colombia, it's dangerous, 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 and people tell you, and you're like, yeah, no, it's expected. Here, I didn't expect it, especially since I've been to Ecuador before, and I kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's not my favorite country, but it's beautiful. Like, and I've actually really enjoyed this town. So I'm having a completely different experience than I did before in a town that I have been warned is so dangerous that I actually really like it. And okay, so now let's move on to, we're gonna talk about people and food, the differences of Colombia and Ecuador. In Colombia, if you ever go to Colombia, the people will talk to you. They will instantly, you get in a cab, you sit down to a restaurant, the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna be like, da, 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 where are you from? What are you doing here? You're on vacation. And they're gonna like instantly start a conversation. And Colombians are known for this. They're known for being very charismatic. They're known for being very charismatic and being very like open. And that's why people love Colombia so much, because it's such an open, like loving, warm culture. This is my opinion. You don't have to agree. Obviously, we all have different opinions, and we're not all gonna agree, okay? I just wanna say that first. Here, I get in a cab, they just say, oh, hi, how are you? That's it. They don't start talking to you. I started talking to the cab driver the other day, and I felt like I was kind of like bothering him. So since then, I haven't really initiated, because the people here just aren't as chatty. I guess they're not as chatty. I don't wanna say they're not as open, because they're just not as chatty. It's just a different culture. And a few other things that I have noticed here is yesterday I sat down to breakfast, and I think because there's not a lot of foreign tourism, maybe like from the US or like Europe, people just kind of stare at me, like staring. Like today I was in the grocery store, and a guy just kind of like was staring me down, and I noticed he kept walking the aisles and like kind of being like behind me, but he worked there, so it was like, anyways, that I don't care. Like, I know you're gonna see some like people traveling and they get like so upset, especially females who are traveling alone. It doesn't bother me. I don't really care, to be honest, but it's noticeable. It's something that you notice, and it's something that I like to take notice of, and then make sure that it doesn't lead into dangerous territory, which is if he's kind of staring at me out of curiosity, which is usually what you could feel when it's like a curiosity, like someone's just like kind of looking at you like, what is she doing here? She's not, this is abnormal. We don't normally have tourists here, or we don't normally see a female alone. That's a huge thing too in Latin America, females traveling alone, because a lot of people in Latin America, the females don't typically travel alone. They do, but it's not as common as it is in the US or from Europe. So it's kind of like, you're like, is he thinking that? Or am I gonna have to worry about a stalking situation? But you leave the store, the guy doesn't leave, and you're like, okay, and then but I should, and then you walk down the street, people are gonna stare at you. I mean, I clearly look very different. So I'm like the sore thumb sticking out. People will say hi, hello in English, because they know that I'm not from here. But people do talk to you. So it's not like they don't talk to you. They just take a while. So I went out for breakfast this morning. I sat down, and you know, people kind of like were like, you know, they took my order, and I just sat there, no problems. Actually, I haven't had any problems anyway. I don't really have problems when I travel. I just like to notice things that are super interesting. And the guy took my order, I ate, I was there for like an hour. And when I was leaving, he said, oh, are you on vacation? Oh no, he said to me, he said, you're not Ecuadorian. And I said, what gave it away? My skin color, like the look of me? And I just started laughing, and he's like, yeah. But yeah, and that's what they've been saying to me, is it's not that they are not friendly here, they're just not as in your face friendly. They like assess the situation, and then they're a bit slower to warm up. So eventually he like, after me being there for an hour, he kind of was like looking at me, like probably like trying to figure out what's going on with me. And then like when I went to leave, he's like, oh, you're not Ecuadorian, you're not from here, are you on vacation? What are you like asking me? Then he started talking to me. So they are friendly, it's just a different type of, it's a bit more reserve friendly, which I'm kind of like that, so I appreciate it, because I'm not in your face friendly either. I'm kind of a more reserved, and then like let me assess the situation, and then I'll talk to you. But it was different from yesterday. I was sitting in having breakfast at another restaurant, and all of a sudden the lady at the lady who took my order started talking to me. She's like, hey, and I found out she was from Venezuela. And then there was two guys that came to talk to me there from Venezuela, and then another guy came to talk to me, and he was from Colombia. So it was interesting how the Venezuelans and Colombians, who are very similar and chatty anyways, were the ones talking to me, not the Ecuadorians. So it was funny to see the difference of a bit more reserved, but friendly, but reserved. And then Colombia and Venezuela, they're like chatting me like blah, 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 which I'm used to. So, and you even notice it walking into like stores. So I have been kind of shopping a bit. I had to buy, you know, just a few things like for my trip tomorrow. I go into like a clothing store or any type of store because I needed a hat and a few things. In Colombia, as soon as you walk in, there's someone like there saying, hey, what do you want? Da, da, can I help you? Da, 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 like kind of like a bit hovering. And here I like walk in a store, I don't see anybody, and I'm like, hola, hola, because I'm so used to them being like right there for me. And I also want to let them know that I'm there, so they don't have to worry about like someone stealing something, because that's like something, I think that's why they do it in Colombia, because make sure that you don't take the stuff and run. I don't really know why, I'm just making that up. But here they're so much different. They're like, oh yeah, look around, okay, if you need me. Much more like just a more off, like more reserved way in that as well. So yeah, it's been very interesting to notice like what I'm used to, because I'm used to like everyone like taxi drivers just immediately talking to me. I'm used to people just like instantly talking to me about everything. And here I'm kind of like, okay, like they're staring more. So they're staring at me more, so they're intrigued, but they're like from a distance, so it's kind of like a weird vibe, and you're like, okay, whatever. But now, I mean, I've been here a couple days, you know, just how it is, but it's interesting. Okay, let's talk about food. So if you've been following me, you know that I love Colombian food. And I didn't realize how fried it really is. Like, everything is fried in Colombia. Everything is fried and everything has sugar in it, in case you don't know. And then there's tons of vegetables, and there's tons of fruits and vegetables also, and like soups. So the food here is sort of similar, except for I noticed that in their juices they don't put a lot of sugar. It's like not sweetened at all. Like, it's more of like a natural sweet. In Colombia they're like dumping sugar in it. And something else here is that they have a lot of like parrillas, like grills that they grill like the food on. In Colombia they like deep fry everything, so everything is like deep fried. So I feel the food is a bit healthier here. It's still rice and beans and lentils, chicken and fish, but they do have a lot of fish here. They have a lot more like variety of foods. Also, I'm on the river that connects to the Amazon, so it's gonna be like maybe food from the coast of Colombia, but still there they deep fry everything. So here I've noticed the food is a little bit more healthy, not as sweet, not as sugary. So that has been a nice change. As much as, you know, I do love Colombian food, I'm happy for the little bit of change, and they do have spices and stuff that's a little bit spicier on the food here. And this is just in this little tiny town. And I did see some grilled fish that I'm gonna get for dinner later. It looked so delicious, but it's like all grilled. It's not deep fried. So like my arteries are gonna be very happy. And then I'll go back to Colombia in January and I'll be like right back to normal. So the Spanish here, when they speak, I'm having difficulty understanding some of them because they have a little bit, it's a different accent, which is normal for any country you go to. So yeah, the accents change, so you just have to kind of like adjust like your ear a little bit, and it's taking me a little bit of time. They do speak a little bit faster here. But anyways, yeah, tomorrow I'll be going to Peru, so it'll probably change then. So then I can notice things there that are different. But it's just interesting, like, when you travel and you've lived somewhere, because the point for me of traveling is not to like go boom, 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 like here, here, here. The fact that I'm only here for 2 days is a very short time for me. And if I didn't want to head to Iquitos and stay for like 2 solid months, I would stay here longer. But I kind of want to get somewhere, have like a home base for like 2 months and like live there versus just traveling through. So here I'm just traveling through, but I do really like it here, despite people telling me how dangerous it is. I have had no issues. I also don't go out at night. I also listen. I don't bring out my GoPro. I just, you know, you just have to, when you're traveling alone as a female, it's a lot different than traveling with people or traveling alone as a male, I feel. So yeah, but people do talk to me. Yesterday a guy came up to me, he works for the tourism board, so he like showed me all around the area, and he didn't charge me anything. It wasn't like a walking tour and he expected to tip. He was like, oh no. So I ran into him today. Yesterday he introduced me to one of the cops, and I saw the cop driving today, and he's like honking and waving. So I mean, this is a very small town, or like a city. I don't know if it's a city or town. It's like very, very small. And so then I ran into him again, and his guides are doing like a boat tour at 2 o'clock, so I'm gonna go down and do that, because I really haven't done anything touristy here besides walking around and going into the grocery stores and buying stuff for my trip. Oh yeah, one more thing that this is gonna be something that's like I have noticed. So one other thing that I noticed, I almost forgot, is when you get into a taxi here. So 2 things that I have noticed when I get into a taxi. In Colombia, if you slam a door, the taxi driver, he will be like, give you the nasty. He will be so pissed. He'll be like, blah, 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 why did you slam my door, basically. And so you close them really gently. Here, I've been doing that because I don't want him to get yelled at. And the guy's like, más fuerte. So then I have to open it and I have to like slam it, and he's like, so that, which is like so stupid, but it's like one of those things when you're in Colombia you will notice, because you're like, why? Here they will slam the door. And something else that I noticed that they do here is, this is like, they know where they're going. Okay, let me give you context. If you take a cab in Colombia, even in my little town, and you tell them where you're going. Where? No, you need to direct them. You need to tell them where. You need to tell them there. You need to tell them here. No, stop here, go here. Even like in a city, they act like they have no idea. It's like their first day on the job, kind of. They're just like, where am I going? Da, 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 da. And they have the address and they have the map and they live there and they've been doing it forever. And you're just like, I don't understand. Like, I've literally had taxi drivers in Colombia have me guide them with my Google Maps when they had the same Google Maps. And I'm just like, isn't this, you are from here. I am like a foreigner in a strange land. Anyways, here, I got in a taxi and I was expecting to have to guide them because, you know, so, and I tell somebody where I'm going and I'm like, oh, do you know where it's at? And he goes, yeah, like, of course. And he's like, okay. And then, so I was like, okay, maybe that's a fluke, right? Maybe I got a good one. So coming back, I did the same thing. I said, I told him I was coming here. I just said the name of the place. I didn't have to tell him the road, the cross street, the like palm tree across the road that has like coconuts. I didn't have to tell him there's a coffee shop across the street. Be like, you know, the intersection where like the lady with the chicken and the goats live, you know, like, no. I just said this and I'm like, you know where it's at? He goes, yeah. That was it. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it's a small town, granted, but yeah, in my small town. So I just thought that was very interesting. I hope I don't offend anybody. Actually, so I hope you found this at least entertaining. And remember, we all have our own opinions. Just because I have a blabbermouth and come on here and tell you mine doesn't mean that mine are right or mine are wrong. Mine are just mine. An objective assessment of what I have noticed from living in a different Latin American country to visiting a different Latin American country that is completely different. It is more like, it is a hot, humid on a river. It's not a small pueblo in the middle of Colombian mountains. Completely different, but I just thought it was interesting. So, that is all I have to say. Oh, one last thing. Being here is really interesting. If you've ever been to Southeast Asia, I feel like Southeast Asia vibes, like with all the street vendors and like the humidity and like, I don't know. I'm interested to see what like Iquitos is like because I heard Iquitos is very similar to Southeast Asia also, even with like no cars. So it should be fun. So don't forget to watch my like little series of me traveling. So I'm taking the boat tomorrow for 4 days, 4 different boats, 4 different days, and stopping in like little remote areas of the Amazon. So yeah, that is it. Don't forget to subscribe. Water for water. Ciao.